poppin', everybody? Hello and welcome to Popcorn Culture. My name is Ben Carlin and I am your host. Here with me today is my brother Jay, who will be in every episode.
The other host, they call me over on the Reddit.
I'm pretty sure Chief Executive Guest is the one that really is sticking the most firmly. It's like...
I don't think that's what... I think we all agreed those initials in a row, just SEG, just CEG, those were terrible.
It's like gum on the bottom of your shoe, though, man. It's like maybe you don't want it there. Maybe it's a little disgusting, but you know what? It's stuck.
It's not there. It is definitely not that.
All right, should we just go ahead and dive right on into this week's corny joke?
If you think you can get all the way through the corny joke, by all means, give it a shotski there.
Okay, so let me ask you this, though. Like, the real question, does it bother you? Does it bother you that... I see you. I hear you. Does it bother you if I present with the corny joke and then we start talking about something and it's kind of like, hey, we're supposed to start here, but then like through discussion we end up somewhere else?
Hey,
because
this is a conversation, you know? If we meander down different paths, that's just sort of the way it goes.
It is sort of the way it goes, isn't it?
Right.
And topics, okay, actually, no, for real though.
Okay.
But on the note of topics, because this is like, as we're going through each of these episodes of Popcorn Culture, there is like a little bit of that feeling going back to like year one SuperCarlinBrothers. I think we talked about this last week, where it's like, what will be like that topic today? And for the most part, like we don't really plan exactly where these things are going to go. And I would say that most of the most chunky tangents from every episode are entirely unplanned.
For the most part, I would agree with that. Yeah, like occasionally we'll have a specific thing we want to talk about. But yeah, if people are like, oh boy, I can't wait for them to cover WandaVision on Popcorn Culture.
Yeah.
You know, it's
hard to know if we will.
It's hard to know if we will. Maybe we'll circle around to it. Maybe we won't.
Well, okay. So anyway, like what I've said before, though, is that in year one, SuperCarlinBrothers made a whole bunch of videos that, for the most part, probably largely needed to be like a dialogue. And I think at the time I was so ridiculously uncomfortable on camera that I was really like highly unwilling to almost like do that dialogue where I could like literally just pretend to be the audience asking myself a question and then answer the question.
Right.
Which very frequently, like now when we're making like our theory videos, we'll do that exact thing where it's like blah, 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 blah. And yes. Then like, you know, we'll answer it. So we're like jumping to what we assume is going to be like the most common like rebuke.
Yeah. Well, basically what happens is while we're writing a theory, you know, we will run into the exact problem we end up covering.
Correct.
It's like, now, okay, this seems like it makes sense. This seems like it makes sense. Oh, but wait a minute. Isn't this true? And then it's like, but here's why it's not. Sure, at a glance, it is.
Right. Well, and the other thing too, because I love the idea of like catching people, because I've gone back and watched our own videos before, and I've been like, I wonder if we caught this. And then like literally as I'm like thinking that I myself watching a video of myself back, I'm like, oh man, you're walking right into the trap. And then like I will offer the disclaimer that I'm like, oh wow,
hey,
you thought of it then too. Look at you go.
Yes, that has happened to me before as well. And I'm like, am I just remembering the script writing process in my head? Like, am I just like going through some backlog file in there, or am I in the moment having the same concern?
Right. You okay.
know?
So I'm kind of glad you like brought it up that particular way, because so the thing that I was doing today, I was like, okay, we're going to sit down here in a little bit to record the show. And I just want to like find something that could be like a fun nugget to work off of, because here recently with my life, I have felt like I have pretty much existed in two key areas. My brain has either been super absorbed with the renovations going on at my house,
right,
or Name of the Wind, and which has been a massive distraction for me. I think my productivity is plummeted. But if the Name of the Wind videos end up being very popular on our channel, then I'll be in great shape, because it's literally all I want to do.
Right.
But that being said, though, so as I'm going back and I'm like scrolling through my phone, one of the things I thought would be kind of interesting would go back to my notes, because when we were doing SuperCarlinBrothers year one, it was so many videos, and so constantly, if like anything just popped to your mind while you were, you know, cleaning a protein skimmer, you know, as most people probably were doing in their early 20s.
Right now.
You know, it was like, oh, I should write that down real quick. So I'm like scrolling through my phone and I'm like looking at all of these thoughts that I had put down to be like year one topics, where it was like,
oh, really? Like
Yeah.
you still have the year one topics in your phone?
they're still on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah. And as I'm like scrolling back through it, it's the type of thing, like we were just saying, like with going back and watching like fandom videos that we made and like, oh, you're walking into that trap. Like, and then I don't remember the fact that we actually clarified. This is like me going back and looking at thoughts and being like, this was a different person. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't remember thinking this. And it's like, I almost even feel like I'm like being very critical of myself in the past, because I'm like, wow. Like you need do more research, man. Like your worldview is it's like, it's not big enough yet. But I think the interesting thing about it is that I know, going back to those moments and like trying to put myself like back in that position where I was typing that note, I was taking all of the information that I had at my disposal, and so frequently like the little details were extremely related to things that I was interacting with personally, like on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's I don't know if you ever have this issue with yourself, but I think looking back on that version of myself and feeling so critical of it, there's also this like impending fear that I have about everything that I'm saying right now during these early episodes of Popcorn Culture, where it's like, what's going to happen if 10 years from now and 41-year-old Ben is coming back and listening to episode 72 of The Pop, and he's like, oh gosh, you know so little. Like, is this,
Right.
is it like every decade is just gonna keep happening? Like I have to like look back on my old self and be like, you thought you knew. You really thought you knew.
You thought you were on top of it. I think what the thing is, I think that will always sort of be true. Like you always look back and think like, I wish I'd had a better take back then. And that will probably just always continue to be true. The question is whether or not, like how well it will age, I guess, right?
That's the thing. Yeah. It's like I want to believe that everything I'm saying is just going to age really well.
Well, you hope so. But at the same time, I think you have to just hope people are like, well, this is the thing. You can like hope people are forgiving of whatever your ignorance is. But if the internet has taught me anything, it's that people are not.
That's true. Yeah. So that I mean, that's like, you know, I've always had this like big, strong stance. Like when people, like we've gone and like talked at like seminars and stuff like that to other like up and coming YouTube type people. And one of the big questions people ask are like, do you leave your original videos up or do you take those down? Because like that's you before you really became you in the most present day sense.
Right.
Like when did you step into those shoes and kind of like become who you are today? And my big stance has always been like, no. Like you got to leave that early stuff, because then, you know, like if people find you and they can go back, they can see how far you've come.
They totally can. And this is another reason why like the theme, well, like one of the taglines for this show is like strong opinions about weak things.
True.
And it's like that. I think maybe the fear of exactly what you're talking about is what has sort of driven me into like I think it's my old stuff is probably okay. It's probably cringy because I'm probably not very good on camera and it's not well edited and it's shot on bad equipment.
You've always been great.
Well, thank you very much for that. But
No problem.
I think me intentionally would be like, I know that my opinion on something is not going to be well informed enough to make like a real heavy comment on it. So I will just make heavy comments about things that don't matter, like you know, how to eat bagels or whether or not narwhals are real or whether it's manly to eat yogurt. You know, those are some of my top drawer year one topics, by the way.
Real quality stuff. Quality stuff. I think that like, no, it's kind of interesting though, because you're right. And I think that like a lot of the stuff that I think that we almost had literally two different channels going. Like it's not like you and I were so similar in that first year of SuperCarlinBrothers that we were creating content that like sort of dovetailed together, fit really nicely.
Yeah.
Because I think that like at that point in time in particular, like you're coming, I was coming out of college, and I think that like being in that like academic environment, I definitely thought that I had a much, much firmer grasp on like big topics than I did.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's because like you're going and you're talking to like college professors and you're like, you know, doing like analysis, case studies, you know, all this type of stuff on big companies, on like big things, big current events.
Right.
And I think because of that, I felt like I had sort of done enough of like that learning process, like where maybe I could start having like big discussions. And so that would, I mean, and I would say this is even pretty true to this day, but like, you know, like if I were to go out to, you know, dinner or lunch or something with a group of friends, it's not uncommon for me to be like, okay, let's talk about this like extremely deep topic. And like, I want to like get everybody's opinion at the table and like, why is it that? And like, you know, all of these things. Like,
right.
Would you say this is true about me?
It is true about you.
Is
Yes.
it? Yeah. I feel like your strong opinion about weak things is you do not like that.
It is something. You're right, but this is like probably just an internal thing for me. It's like I don't like having conversations about stuff like that. Well, not that I don't, but not at like lunch.
No, I get that. You know? I get that. It's very reasonable. And there is always that question of like, is this a safe place to have these, like, to ask these questions? Mm-hmm. Because, you know, there is that, like, I don't know, could you upset somebody? Which is that I would say at my core, that is never, ever, ever my goal. Like I would say that usually I'm trying to like seek understanding of some kind. But that's been like the big thing that I was like looking back on like a lot of these topics and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was really, really trying to like grapple hard with these like huge ideas. Because I think probably on like a weekly basis, I come back to like what is the meaning of life, you know, like question, and then it's like maybe today I'll finally understand it, you know, which I feel like there's plenty of philosophers out there who probably haven't quite cracked that nut yet either.
Haven't quite cracked that nut, but I would also say that there's a certain amount of like not needing to put too much pressure on your past self, and like I think a lot of people. Or in general, the whole population would be happier if everyone was sort of under the accurate impression that whoever you were 10 years ago is like literally a different person.
Sure.
Like down to like the actual cells in your body, you know, like that. It's a whole new version of you exists now. Like I think I saw it phrased one time. It might have been on the podcast Hello Internet, which has been dormant for over a year now.
Ugh.
But
one of the first podcasts I ever listened to.
Oh, well, yeah, great podcast. I so hope they come back someday. But I remember Gray, one of the hosts, reminiscing about a very similar topic and how his wife would constantly like they would look back at their wedding photos and say like, isn't it weird that those two people got married and now we live together?
Oh, weird.
Right? Like so, you know, if you apply that to, you know, me and Beth, it's like, yes, me and Beth got married, you know, 6 years ago, and like those two people got married, and now me and present day Beth live together, but we are not the same people.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Like I understand that.
It's like that's nice. It's like it's weird because of course you know you're different from the people you were when you got married, but of course you've lived together the whole time, so you've grown in ways together.
Right.
So
right,
probably
right.
You're much closer. In any case,
but your spikes are similar. So
your
to speak.
spikes are similar. Probably they can see more of your spikes.
True,
as it were.
Yeah.
But I think you know if you want to like, just it's hard to like it. Everyone has those moments where you like remember some like terrible moment in high school or something that was like really embarrassing for you, and you just have this like wave of shame wash over you, and it's like I did that. That was a bad call, and it's like what? But like you can forgive yourself, you know?
Right.
Like that was 15, 18 years ago at this point. That was a completely different person. And the fact that you feel bad about it is a good thing.
Yes.
You know, it's like you have grown. In the moment, you didn't know you were going to feel bad about it. But now that you've gone through that, present you was aware that you shouldn't do that.
I have to tell you like so much though, that this is absolutely like, I have always been like grateful for the fact that that in high school when I was like going through like the dating phase and like all that type of stuff, it was like I made all of the mistakes there. Like right. I parked them there, you know, and it's like as I've gotten older, it's like, you know what? It's like I know that at one point in my life I did this really not good thing, or like this wasn't the best approach to this, or I said this wrong thing,
right.
Or you know, whatever the case may be. And it's like, you know, but that's the thing. It's always like, okay, these things happened then. But so there's a couple of I would say it's a twofold situation though, because on the one hand, I'm like, that is left absolutely there. Like, I know that I'm not that type of person. I would never do that type of thing again. I'm so glad that I learned from younger me. Like, so I guess I'm grateful for past me in this particular sense. But I would say the one thing that hasn't changed, and this is like so unfair to all of the other people involved, is that they are all still how I remember them from high school.
Right.
Like it's like, because all of my experiences with that person stopped then.
Right.
You know, and so
like,
it's like,
they are like locked in time in your brain.
Right. So it's like, you are now like, unfortunately, immortalized as who you were when you were 17. And I get to look back on 17-year-old me and see all the progress I've made since then.
Right.
But like, you don't really have that opportunity to go and like talk to those people and be like, how are you different now?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Certainly, I'm sure you've run into some people since high school who you hadn't seen in, 8 years or so.
Sure. I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, there is some of that. And then I think, like, I remember one instance in particular, and again, this is like a smaller scale version of it, but I had a friend in high school who I had not seen until, again, from graduation until my senior year of high school, where he was visiting my roommate at the time, and we all like went out to dinner. And I think that, again, this is like one of those situations like where it was almost like, you're a little bit of a stranger to me now. Like, we used to do a lot of stuff together. We were like in the same, homeroom, like all this type of stuff. But like I don't really have any experiences with you for 4 years, and like at that point in your life it feels like that's forever,
right?
And
for sure.
I think what was really, really odd to me was how similar this particular person was to exactly how I remembered them,
right?
And that was almost like a little bit of like a flip end of this, where it was like, wow, okay, like not much has changed,
right?
Which, I mean, I'm sure it has since then. I think that he's gone on to do pretty big things. So,
well, here's a good question maybe to ask yourself. I wonder then, like, is there anyone who you can remember that like wronged you in your formative years back in high school or middle school, who if you ran into today you would still be mad at, like, as if like, I cannot does that exist? Or like, if you could think of someone who like wronged you and you saw them today, would you just be like, hey man, what's up? Like, it's been so long. Or would you be like, I don't like this person?
I feel like my head's on fire.
Oh no.
I feel like my head's on fire.
Oh no.
Yes, like a bit. Okay, so we were talking about Hello Internet before. Another one of the podcasts I've actually spent a lot of time listening to is Heavyweights, which is a podcast where a guy helps people go and like kind of
not
like
just a guy named Jonathan. Okay.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, great name.
Great name. Powerful podcasting name.
Exactly.
Makes a great guest anytime. If you need a good
host
guest
for a podcast.
Anyway, so Jonathan over at Heavyweights does this thing where he basically helps like reconcile these type of like long-term situations. Is this a fair way to describe the premise of the show?
That is a good way. Yeah, I think yes, that is a good way to describe it. Like, someone did something to you a long time ago. It has stuck with you and changed your life and affected you every day since then. And maybe they're completely unaware of it, and he helps you confront them. He'll track them down for you.
Yeah, it's like unfinished business.
It's like unfinished business, but probably only on your end.
Probably maybe. So I was chatting with one of my friends about this the other day, and we were going back and forth about this very topic of like unfinished business. And as I was listening to Heavyweights back in the day, I think it was like a big long road trip, and I listened to, I had like binged it. I had like 10 episodes in a row or something. And the whole time I was like, man, there is that one piece of unfinished business that like I would so like, there's like a huge part of me that would love to think that I would like write into Heavyweights and be like, hi, my name is Ben Carlin and I have this thing and I need to figure out how to resolve it. But then there's the other part of me that is like, what if it is unresolvable?
What?
Like what would happen if like I were to like reach out to this person and it was like, hey, like I know this was a really long time ago. I'd love to like, clear the air on this whole particular situation. Like, can we do that? Like, is that okay? Like let's go have lunch, or we'll have a beer or something. It'll be great. And there, like, it's even talking about it right now, I'm like getting like anxiety about it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm like, I don't know what, like,
is it Carp Girl?
You know what?
I feel like you could write into Heavyweights and be like, look, there was this situation, and this girl fell into a A pile of carp.
Like so many carp people.
Like you wouldn't think of things underwater being in a pile, especially when they're not on the sea floor. But this was a pile of carp at the surface.
A pile of carp. Indeed.
Yeah.
They were on the surface.
And I don't know her name. And she was like, I had a crush on her. I pushed her. What?
I did not push her. I did not push her.
Did you, Ben?
Goodness gracious, if Carp Girl is listening and she thinks that I pushed her, then this is going to be not good.
Maybe you should tell a heavyweight so that you did. And you're like, I feel so bad because if I fell into a pile of carp, I need to apologize and I don't know how. And it affects me every day.
Every day. Okay. So I would say that Carp Girl is a firm second.
Okay.
Like
do you want to share your situation?
No, I don't want to.
Okay,
Not even one bit. Not even one bit. Although I would be willing to bet that if this person was listening, which I would not expect to be the case at all, but I would be willing to bet that if this person was listening, they would know exactly who they are and they would know the exact situation that is unresolved.
Am I aware of the situation?
I'm sure you are.
Okay.
I'm sure you are.
I'll ask you off air.
Off air.
Perhaps about your unresolved thing that haunts you. I would like to think that I'm not holding too many grudges. I try not to hold grudges as best I can.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's very, I mean, sometimes it can be hard, but the best thing I've ever heard about holding a grudge is that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's pretty good.
It's just
pretty
like,
good.
Yeah, it's like that. It is doing no good. It is doing you no good.
We need to add Jay drops like a fantastic thought bomb onto the bingo card.
There we go. Thought bombs.
Thought bombs. Because that was a really good thought bomb.
Oh, thank you.
I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
No, it's very interesting actually, because there was a grudge, like I think I've told this story on the pop before, but when I was a kid, I was in the speech contest that like sort of went awry, and I had like put all this planning into it, and I got up on stage and they like read the results backwards, so like they gave me the first place plaque, and then I went back to the table, and then I had to go back up in front of a group of people and give it back, and then
because you were last,
because I actually came in last.
Yeah.
And that was one of those people that for a very, very, very long time, and I would say even like into like since we had started Super Carlin Brothers, I would have had one of those grudges against. Like I remember the guy's name.
I do too, I think.
Do you really?
Because I believe he was a counselor at the old 4-H.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I do remember.
Okay, so there you go.
So you're waiting for his heavyweight call to you to be like, look, Ben, I'm so sorry about that.
To be honest with you, if that did happen, I mean, what I'm trying to say is I don't hold a grudge against this person anymore, because I do understand like how much of an honest mistake it would have been. And if this particular thing that happened to me, I would feel so bad. Mm-hmm. And I am so sure that this person felt so bad. Like
sure.
They weren't like, this was not someone, they made a mistake, like they weren't trying to wrong me in any way.
Right.
But it's like one of those moments that I go back to, and even kind of exactly what we do now with like what our dad did growing up, where like being a public speaker was like such a big part of who he was in his career. Mm-hmm. This felt to me like such a, like my path like forked that day.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, like I thought I was going to go down this path, and then now I'm not anymore. Now I'm going down this path instead.
This path.
So I think for a long time, I had this like resentment, and I was like, if I ever run into this guy, then I'm going to give him the firmest handshake ever, because that is about as aggressive as I can get with anything. is like iron grip handshake. No, not really. I would not do that. But, that was like always sort of like how I imagined it in my head. Like I would have to bring it up. But if anything now, I think that if I ran into this person, so if this person is sitting out there unexpectedly listening, let me tell you that it is okay.
It is okay that you gave Ben first place, then fourth place.
First place, then
in
fourth
front
place.
of a large crowd.
And really, it wasn't even fourth place. I think it was more like 15th place. But they brought me a fourth place plaque. But I am pretty sure that plaque was like we screwed up. Here it is. Like, I don't think I actually came in fourth place.
Wasn't there only 4 people?
No, I think there was more than 4 people.
Oh, I've been misunderstanding this story.
It was one of those things that I remember when they brought me the plaque, and it was like, hey, 4th place. And I remember thinking like, oh, okay. I was like right there in it. And then like the longer I spent thinking about it and what it meant for the fact that they had read the results backwards, it was like, oh. The thing that has actually never made sense to me is they obviously they called 3rd place, 2nd place, and then the first place came last. Or in this case, quite literally. See what I did there? See what I did there? First place came last, because that was me. First place, last.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
All jokes better when explained. But they didn't correct the 2nd and 3rd place. So I don't really
that's
know. I
interesting.
never understood like what happened there, or if they were like, okay, we gotta make sure first place gets this because it's pretty
Because
important.
otherwise they're getting nothing.
Because otherwise they're getting nothing. But it was like, I don't know what to do about those other people. So I have no idea if that was something that was like resolved otherwise. Anyway, not the point. It's fine. It's fine. You out there, if you're listening, don't worry about it. Okay, so going back to my notes from year one, though, I was digging through, and I thought this was something that I wrote down, and I have no additional context to it, whatever.
Okay, let's hear it. What's your year one video idea that maybe got made and maybe didn't?
I don't even think it did get made. But it just says, however rare, the highest percentage of... Let me try again. However rare, the highest percentage of people that can levitate are middle children.
However rare, this is the most Ben Carlin sentence I've ever heard.
I know.
However rare.
It's like not many people can, but those who can are middle children.
Okay. Why would they need to be? Why is anyone levitating? Is the question.
I don't really have any idea.
However rare, the highest percentage of people who can levitate are middle children. So in this scenario, many people can levitate, but it's a rare gift. But amongst those who can, the highest percentage, the most of them are middle children.
I think what it would say
over
is
51%.
Yeah, no, not a plurality.
A majority.
A majority.
Yeah.
Wow. You have to constantly school me in that what those words mean. No, I think that this is more, like very, very, very few people can levitate, but those who can.
That's true.
Yes. Right, yeah, exactly. So, but like literally even like the note in my phone underneath it just says no additional text. So it's that was me. It was the thing telling me there's nothing else below this.
Like your phone's been thinking about it for years, and it's like, I was looking for what this meant. There is no additional text, Ben.
Okay.
One day you'll know my pain.
Here's my thing, though. Here's my strong opinion about weak things is that birth order makes a difference.
Oh, like absolutely, it makes a difference.
This is okay. So I remember I had never even heard of middle child syndrome until I was like a professional adult. I was doing like an aquarium job, and I remember saying something to one of the people that was there, and they're like, "Wow, do you have middle child syndrome?" And I was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "I am a middle child, though, so you're not far off."
Now wait a minute.
Yeah, but like this was like forever one of those things. I was so convinced it was like this is affecting my life right now. Like the fact that I was second, like even though I look older, everybody knows it.
Yeah, you do look old.
Yeah, thanks. It's like this does matter. And I would say like the older that I've gotten and now the more that I have like the perspective of watching like new children be born, I'm like, oh my gosh, it matters. It is such a thing.
Yeah.
This is real. And so I don't know. I think it's just curious. It's like, it would be so interesting to see, like, if our lives were switched, how different would it be?
Ooh, I imagine quite different.
Quite different.
I imagine so. But I definitely think birth order matters, or it does affect you in some way, of course, because your parents cannot help but, treat each situation that comes their way as it's happening. And whatever happens with the oldest kid, it typically happens to them first. And the parents, your parents have no idea how to handle it.
Yeah. That is what I now understand like so much more clearly is like, that first day of elementary school, like the first time you were ever sending a kid to school, that is a huge day for you as like your own human.
Right. Like you as the parent, you as a kid are very, very bad at imagining how things are for your parents. It's hard to imagine, I think, for most children that their parents existed before they did.
True.
Like,
yes.
You came into the world and parents existed.
Right.
Like the world did not, like there was no point in time where your parents existed and you did not. But of course there was.
It's just like how the teachers live at the school.
Exactly. Like that's where you see them. That's where they are all the time. They're there.
Right. I get here in the morning. You're already here. When I leave in the afternoon, you're still here.
Yeah.
So this is where you are.
This is where you are. This is what you do. This is your purpose of the world.
In between all the gaps. But no, so I think that's what I fully get now is like, it's like that understanding of like for you as a person, like like Jonathan Carlin, like as you are now like old enough, like in a few years now to like send someone to elementary school, like that'll be a big day, not only for Luke, but for you as well.
Yeah.
And Beth. And so I think that like there probably is something to be said. Yeah. Where it's like, now I get it. I can see how it happens. People are human.
Yeah. But I mean, of course it works out nice in different ways though, because like, if you're sending your eldest child off to do something, you, the parents, maybe are not as prepared for like how to best handle the situation.
True.
So like I, being the eldest, would have received like the front end of not knowing what to do. But by the time you did it, mom and dad would have had like more experience in that situation. It would have been like, okay,
We got the routine
we got the routine
down.
down. I know what to do. We got it. We got it.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So, and that's probably really what leads to most of these middle children being able to levitate, is what I'm understanding. It's like,
Yeah, I still have no idea how you get to levitation from this.
me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither. So I don't exactly know
This is-
what the
Eldest kids have the high ground and youngest kids have the low ground, but you guys are just caught in the middle.
right.
You're
Yeah.
levitating
We're
there,
levitating.
just somewhere in there.
Right. We're just we're in the middle. We're like Obi-Wan, like in Phantom Menace, where he's like hanging from the pipe, but like not when he's hanging from the pipe, and not like as he's slashing Darth Maul in half, but that in between zone.
Yeah.
That's where we are. That's where middle children exist.
They
So next
exist
time you
right
watch
there.
that movie and you're like, oh, middle children, I see it now. That's where they are.
Yeah.
So
In this scenario, does that mean in this scenario you think Obi-Wan was the youngest child?
do
Do you think Obi-Wan has older siblings? I don't think he does.
No, he's Obi-Wan is a classic oldest child, golden boy, responsible. Like, are you kidding me?
I think he's an only child though.
He could be an only child.
Right. I mean, he spends a long time just entertaining himself on Tatooine.
Right, that
Watching Luke grow up.
That's some pretty quality
Like
only
he's
child
had
stuff.
practice.
Right,
you know,
right. Like, I know how to play blocks by myself.
by myself in my hut.
Yeah, this is no big deal. Which is what I like to imagine Obi-Wan Kenobi doing day in, day out.
I guess we'll know soon.
Stacking blocks.
His name is Ben, though. That is a very middle child. Well, that's what Luke calls him.
Right.
Is Luke the elder?
Wait, did you
twin?
just say that Ben is a very middle child name?
Yeah.
Is that true?
No, I don't know. You're a middle child. Your name is Ben, and we're talking about Obi-Wan. He goes by Ben.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah.
point. But yeah,
although Ben Solo, eldest child.
eldest child.
So who knows?
With all of the even Ben Solo, I think feels more like a middle child. Like, he's kind of got that like edgy, like frustrated. Like, I think that was mostly me.
That was you?
Yeah, I would say largely edgy.
Well, see, here's the thing. Only children are sort of simultaneously the eldest child and the only child, but I don't think they get eldest child. Like, they have all the troubles without any of the benefits.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
maybe what happens with only children is that the parents still have enough time to go and like have their own, things that they do, and so that's just like
The parents can still have a life with just one kid. You know?
Oh man, it feels like potentially walking into dangerous territory. Like, all only children out there right now are like, hold up.
I know. Let's be clear. None of us have any idea what it's like to be an only child.
Not one bit.
And we are completely guessing.
We're playing, yeah. Maybe they can levitate too. I'm gonna give them that. The only thing I know is that eldest children cannot levitate.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that for sure. But also oldest children, this was the thing. So I remember that as you entered your high school years, there was sort of this like, looking back on it doesn't feel like it would have been unexpected. But I remember when you brought home the informational flyer to join the cross country team, thinking like, interesting. Like, I didn't expect that, because like we grew up playing like soccer and basketball and like, not like in any measure competitively, like we all like rec league stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't think that either of us was a standout at any point in time in any of those leagues, but maybe you were in basketball. You were better at that than me. But either way, I remember when you coming home, you joined the cross country team, and I think that like that sort of did seal the fates for me a little bit, where it was just sort of like, as far as I was concerned, like that is like the path. Like, so like as I got older, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to join the cross country team. And so I did. And the thing I was reflecting on over the weekend is that maybe I didn't ever like running.
Oh, that's interesting.
Have you ever had this, like, have you ever thought about this? Because since the real reason that I ultimately realized it, I think at some point, was I started rock climbing, and I realized how badly and how often all I was doing was thinking about rock climbing.
Yeah.
And it was like, really the only days that I was not going was because my arms were so sore that if I didn't let them recover, then I was going to be useless anyway and potentially
Right.
set myself up for injury. So the one thing I absolutely know is that when we were running, I was not like, I cannot wait to get back out there, like to do this again.
You were not feeling that way.
I was not feeling that way.
You were not feeling that way. I think maybe what we're running into here is very much like we've talked about before, is the research paper situation.
Yeah.
Where like in school, when you're going to cross country practice, it's a little bit like you're like a, you know, like if you're, because you can only do cross country once you get to high school, at least here. You know,
Right.
you could have done maybe track and field or something in middle school, but
We didn't have a cross country team.
we didn't have a cross country team for middle school. I don't think most places do, but if you do, good for you. Run fast. But like you can do soccer and basketball, and you do those things because they're fun. And it's more like a real like team sport game. Not that cross country is not a team sport, but there's not like a ball. There's not like, you know,
No,
you
I get
can't
you.
really help your teammates on the race course as the same way you can help your teammates in a basketball game.
Right. Yeah. You
know.
are out there together, but there's not a whole lot you can do to help your top athlete run even faster
Right.
from behind.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's you know, you sign up for it, but the chances are like most running you haven't done a lot of running for fun to that point.
True.
You know, it's a little bit like there was always this great mantra though, which I still love, that cross country runners would get to carry around with them. I think a lot of schools have T-shirts that say this, but it's like our practice is your punishment.
Right.
You remember those, right?
Yes, I do remember that,
Because
yeah.
if you're on the football team and you're like acting up, they're like run laps, and it's like, oh, that's your punishment. You show up to cross country and they're like run laps. That's the whole thing.
That's
the
what-
whole thing.
that's what
Our
we do
practice
here.
is your punishment. We signed up for it. Boom,
Boom.
But I think you're right. So, like it feels like it's hard to be something that you're just doing straight up for enjoyment, because someone's always telling you how to do it and what to do, and there's like expectations that like you have a coach and stuff, like in the same way that, you know, like now we write a bunch of research papers, what feels like research papers. We don't have like tons of like notations and citations and things like that.
And we should totally
You know,
work on works
we probably should. We should probably have greater,
Bibliographies.
works cited sheets for whatever. But you know, now we do it and it's like fun to research stuff and like learn things and write them down and share them. And like, that's what we do.
Right.
But in high school, when you're being like forced to read books you don't care about that you think are boring, or research things you think are boring, and the only reason you're doing it is because someone's making you do it, it's like, of course this is boring and terrible and like pulling teeth. But on the flip side, like my wife, Beth, like her entire life, she never did any running or anything. She never did like track or anything. Well, I think she did field in 7th grade,
Oh, yeah.
as it were, maybe 8th grade, but
Discus, shot put.
never did any sort of like team sports athletics or anything. But then as adults, she like joined this running group and she started doing it, and she like loves it. You know,
Right.
she is like, I love getting out there, just love running. And it was like amazing to like watch someone who had never done it before, like discover it on their own and like really embrace it and get a ton of joy out of it, and in like a non-competitive, coach-driven way.
Yes, and I remember even witnessing this happen as well, and like even seeing sort of like the transformation that it had for your wife Beth, where it seemed like she just even had a lot more confidence with herself as she was doing all of this like new activity and stuff. And that's exactly it. So the interesting thing, and again, sort of like there's again this idea of almost like me following you, I feel like, as I segue into the next portion of this conversation. But this past weekend we had the Blue Ridge Marathon,
Right.
which is hosted in our like local, you know, area where we live, and it is regarded as the like America's toughest road marathon. Yeah. So basically it's like you go over like 3 gigantic mountains through the course of it. So it actually brings people from like all over the country, because there's like a considerable amount of clout associated with having finished this particular race.
Yeah,
And
just
it
finishing it.
just happens to be where we are. And as a result, or I guess through I don't know, our connections with it. Our dad actually helped start the race at one point in time. He was like,
yeah, it doesn't just happen to be where we are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. But so our dad has always been super involved with it. And so one of the big things that he does is like the finishing announcements. Like as people are like coming through, you have like a chip on your shoe that pops up on a computer, and that computer kind of gives you like the information about the person. Like this is,
Yeah, where they're from, how old they are, what their finishing time is, what part of the race they were in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all this information. And it's this like announcement thing where you're supposed to be like very like, kind of I always think about like Space Jam, like as everybody was coming out, and it's like, you've got like the little guy up in the booth and he's like, the Toon Squad.
Yeah.
And they're like using like that really like nice boomy,
Big,
echoey,
booming,
like exciting voice. Like,
yes.
Because people are finishing like a really tough thing. And like you're supposed to be like stoked for them.
Right.
And so in the past, Dad has asked us to help him do these finishing announcements because there are thousands of people and there is no doubt about it. Like anyone's voice would run out, especially when you're...
Oh, yeah. I mean,
like,
if you're going to announce every single person who crosses the line, then you're going to be like being in this like excited booming voice for like 6 hours.
Yes.
Because there's like staggered starts. There's not just the marathon and the half marathon. There's the 10K and the kids fun run and the people who are doing the double marathon, and it's all day.
It's all day. So it's a lot of stuff. And so we've gone and helped him announce before, and it's like it's one of these things that I just don't think is like in my wheelhouse, or I've never thought that it was in my wheelhouse. And I was always like, it gives me again, like just like this real severe anxiety. Like I know the marathon's coming up, and it's almost like I need to just like go out and run these things so I don't have to do the announcing, because like I just get so nervous about it. Mm-hmm. And it like, it weighs on me, and I'm not sure why. Like, cause with what we do, like, we're typically talking to, lots of people out there in the world, but I don't know, maybe it's because our local area is like so small, and like the ability to recognize that it's my voice or something that I feel like extra exposed or something. It's like having to like go back to like your high school self or something. It's like all those people are still here and they're here, hear my voice. And so I've never felt good at it. And this past weekend, you and Tyler both had like very good reasons to like not be able to go. And so it was kind of like, well, I guess I'm in it. And it was like, I was super nervous, and I got there, like Dad's going, like I could hear his voice from like where I parked my car, like a half mile away. And he is like born to do this.
Yeah.
I
mean, he's also been doing it for like, 30 plus years.
Professionally.
Yeah.
So there's that too. But I remember getting out there, and I was like, okay, like, like my palms are sweaty, and like I went and like, I don't know, just the whole thing is just really anxiety inducing and nerve wracking. And I remember like stepping into it, and there was this odd thing that I felt like happened this past weekend where it was almost like the training wheels came off.
Yeah.
Like typically what would happen is you and I would both get there. Because I was hesitant about doing it, you would go first. Mm-hmm. And so on top of my existing nerves, I was then like watching you go and do it and like be good at it. And then like, I'd pick up the microphone and be like, this is Susie Talks a Lot coming across the finishing line from New York City.
I don't think you've ever sounded like that.
I think it's pretty much exactly what I sound like. That's my booming voice.
That's your booming voice.
Did you not tell?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, calm down over there, Ben. Jeez,
right.
I gotta take my headphones off. You were so loud.
I know. It's a strong baritone, which is why they're going to ask me to play Quoth.
Exactly.
Name of the wind. No, but anyway, so I think the big thing this past weekend was like almost because I was there and didn't have you as my support system for it, which at this point, by both being brothers, friends, and like business partners, we do so many of our like life's adventures together.
Yeah.
And frequently I feel like you're in a position of like maybe being like happier or more excited doing the specific thing. And I'm usually there like, I guess we have to do it. It's an opportunity or something. So anyway, I don't know. I thought that I stepped into it and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I'm all right.
Right.
And it was like because I didn't, have like that support system there, and I was able to like jump out of the nest on my own. It was like, I could fly.
Yeah.
I could fly.
Right.
And like by the end of it, I was having fun. And I was like, man, I didn't expect this. I was so nervous for it. And now I'm like having a great time.
Well, excellent. I'm glad for you.
I know. It was really cool. And by way of being there, the other thing is that I don't know if you've ever been I know you have, but people out there, if you've ever been at a finishing shoot for any type of like major race like this, but it is straight up intoxicating. Mm-hmm. Like the aura, the excitement from people, the sense of accomplishment that's being like like delivered in every direction, it is contagious.
Oh, for sure it is. Like Beth has done a bunch of half marathons, and I am typically the stuff holder. So my job on race day is basically to show up and stand with her, like in her, starting wherever she's going to start from. And the moment she's about to start running, take all the stuff, put it in the backpack, hold it, go back to the car, put back whatever needs to be put back, and then like chill for the 2 hours while she's out running.
Sure.
Or whatever. And then be there ready to hold stuff again. Like I'm stuff guy.
You're stuff guy.
Stuff guy.
You do it so well too.
Oh man, there's an art to it. You know
Yeah,
what? Dude, you think that this is just like, okay, you're just there along for it. There's no skill to be had. But let me tell you, once we were at the St. Patrick's Day half marathon, the rock and roll half marathon in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And I was stuff guy. We were there and we were part of this like giant house that had like 30 people in it. Everyone had come from Roanoke. Everyone had run like the same local running store or whatever. And the next morning we're out there and they're like, oh man, we're about to start the race. We should all like take a selfie. But like, you know what? No one could do it because no one has long enough arms to accommodate 30 people in one picture.
Oh, but hold up.
Stuff guy had selfie stick in the backpack.
You're kidding me.
I was ready.
You had it.
I was ready. Then, not only that, people needed to you needed to write numbers on your arm. No one had a Sharpie. Guess what? Stuff guy had a Sharpie.
Stuff guy had a Sharpie.
I was on top of it. I had anticipated all these situations. I was there.
I don't know if I've ever been more impressed.
Well, there you go.
In my life.
Stuff guy.
I feel like Beth finished the race that day, but who was the real hero?
Who was the real hero? Beth.
Yeah, I agree with you. Great job, Beth.
That day in particular was a terrible day to run. It was like, it was like 34 degrees outside and pouring rain.
Ooh.
It was a rough day to be at the beach of all places. Yeah. So while she was running, I went and got breakfast with some other people who were not running from the house. That was good. We got pancakes.
Some other stuff guys.
Yeah, other stuff people.
Nice. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, I'm very impressed with you as ever.
Yeah, well, thank you.
But so like the big thing that's happening for me now is, despite the fact that I have been a significant, at points in my life, I would say a pretty significant like runner, like it's how I would have defined myself for stretches of time. And then having the realization that I was like, maybe I don't like running. And like, maybe what I really liked about cross country was like, the team and the environment and
you get to be a part of it.
You get to be a part of it. And like, there were always like really good people who were always like super determined. And, in order to run cross country, it's kind of a prereq to have like a certain kind of drive.
If you're going to exist in cross country, you have to have a certain amount of determination to do it, because that sentiment from earlier that like our practice is your punishment, that's like a very real thing. And cross country practices are no joke. And there's like always, people you suffer with together, you bond with.
Yeah.
And you do this basically every day. Not that it's like, suffering, but runs are hard. You're starting in August. It's hot. It's 3 p.m. and you're running outside,
Yeah.
It's humid.
So anyway, though, like with all that being said, though, it was very interesting because I walked away from this weekend and I was like, man, maybe I want to run a marathon. And I've run a half marathon before. A couple. I've actually run the Blue Ridge half marathon before, so I could get out of announcing duty once. And it was, at that point in time, I would say it was the hardest physical endeavor I have ever done in my life.
Wow.
I did not train nearly enough for it. It was extremely hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just glad to get across the finish line. I was like, okay, it's over.
It's like, how can you get far enough away from a thing that you can re-enter it without all of your preconceived, because I would bet that you have not been able to re-enter the sport of running without approaching it like it was cross country ever.
Yes, and that's a really good way to put it. And I don't think I've been able to frame it in my mind that way, but that is exactly what's happening. It's like I need to think of it in the way that I'm thinking of it is like, I don't know anything about this sport. Like,
right,
I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to train. I need to get like a book. I need someone to like help guide me. I probably need to go and like ask a professional what type of shoes to wear. Like, the whole 9 yards. Like I really need to like just reinvent my entire approach to this and then kind of go from there.
This is basically how I recently like re-entered the world of like biking. Like we've been going mountain biking and stuff.
Yes.
Recently. And it was like, yes, I know how to ride a bike. And if you put a bike in front of me, I can get on it and ride. And I always had all these like background associations with like failed mountain biking trips. And like, this is just how I am at mountain biking. This is how you're supposed to mountain bike. And this is what's expected of you when you're on a bike. And like, you know, and it was just like, none of that needed to be true. It was like, but I'd managed to be like far enough away from it for a long enough amount of time where it was like, I got a new bike. Let me just admit to myself, I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
And I will just go out there and not pretend like I know what's supposed to be happening and just sort of learn it as we go. And it's been like just a way different experience.
Yeah, and you've been totally crushing it. So
yeah, well, we need to get back out there. It's been a few weeks now.
I know it's been a few weeks because man, we had an event happen.
We did.
It was like it was the thing. But okay, so here recently we've been trying to get into JOMPS, as I like to call it. That's JOMPS.
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 Yeah.
So like, you know, we take our mountain bikes and we go off JOMPS.
Off JOMPS.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't exactly say that we're like particularly good at JOMPS, to be honest with you. It's not.
Yeah.
It like we are like distance riders, you know, like we can go out and we can like ride like a reasonably long trail, but like I don't know that we're the absolute best at like looking cool.
Well, I would say this is that we are at a particular age in life where being people who go off jumps and do like tricks is not really what it's not really what I'm trying to get out of my mountain biking experience.
Sure. No, I understand that completely.
However, even if you're just someone who's going out and doing just like long rides in trails and going up hills and downhill, like more cross-country style mountain biking, like it is inevitable that you will come across situations where you might need to be airborne. Like not in a like I'm going off a giant half pipe at the X Games sort of way.
Sure.
But there are certainly times where there is you are going with speed into a jump.
A jump.
That,
well said.
You know, where you could slow down and try and like ride off the other side, which might actually be the harder way to do it.
Sometimes, yeah. And it's like kind of like trail design itself. It's like the intent is to go off of it and to leave the ground with your two wheels and then return to the ground.
Right.
And in some cases, like the way that they've built it, it's such that like if you were to ride up and then wheel down and you had like too much speed, there'd be the potential to go over handlebars.
Right.
Which is a relevant topic for what happened recently,
right?
Which had a multifold situation. So we have been kind of getting into this. We've like there's a couple of like small places here locally where we can go, and like you and I and our riding buddies like spent a couple of weekends just going off jumps and like practicing on like what is effectively like a 1/4 mile long strip that it's basically there for this exact thing. It's to practice. Mm-hmm. So you go and you can just like run circuits on it all day and like really like put some emphasis on it. But in our area, mountain biking is like a particularly like big tourist pull. Like it's to come here to come ride would be like, it might be the entire reason you're coming to our area.
Right.
And so with that, there's been a lot of development and there's been like a lot of trail building. So we go out to this particular place where it's like what we've been practicing on, which is like our little 1/4 mile strip, except it's like scaled up times like 30. So it's like, it's bigger, longer, more jumps, more space, the whole nine. So we get out there and there's like a little like area where you can like scoot around, like go off a couple of like smaller jumps and try some things. And like while we're there, it's almost exactly like what you were saying, where it's almost like we've gotten like a little bit too old to where like we're a little too aware of the safety element of it.
Right.
So we're out there and we're like, you know, going off these jumps, we're getting like 3 inches of air.
Yeah.
And
you're like, whoa.
And, you know, like, of course, all of us are, you know, we're at a stage in our life where we were able to buy reasonably nice bicycles. Like, so they're not like top end, but they're good. But while we're there, these like kids roll up who are like 10, 11 years old. And they're like on bikes that are like completely mismatched. Like, you know, they're not
the kids.
You know these kids. And they're going off the exact same jumps and getting like 6 feet of air.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa.
Like, what?
And so, like, you know, we're like running laps. While they like run over to the kids. We're like, how long have you guys been riding? They're like, like 3 months. And I'm like, what?
Okay.
No, say it isn't so. So anyway, we're extremely humbled in this particular situation with our max 3 inches of air.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going over like and going past the skills park is what they call it, into the actual like terrain for the ride, which we were riding the advanced loop. Not to say we were doing anything impressive, but we're riding the advanced loop, and we're kind of like, we're going down, we're like getting the hang of it, like nobody, like everybody's doing great, honestly. Like, considering we've never been here before, we've never done this before, all is going well. And like, I think for me in particular, I was like, I think I'm getting it figured out. Like, I know how to hit these things. So it's like the last jump of the day. The sun is going down. The mosquitoes are coming out. And we're like, okay, we got to wrap this up. We got to get to our cars, all this thing. And so the guy who's the best in our group's name is David. And so he goes down and he's like, I'm going to film you guys. Like, so really like send it.
Yeah, full send.
Like, and I say that like he was just being very encouraging and like, I'm gonna have the camera out. So like, whatever. And so like we go through and it's the last run of the day and he's filming on the last jump. And so I go across and, I get my 3 inches of air. Then like my friend Steven goes across and he gets his 3 inches of air. And then our good buddy Mike, member of the GMA,
been on the pop.
He comes up and he like the approach just ends up being wrong. And he effectively kind of like comes up on the jump. The front tire hits. And if you can imagine, it's a table.
Right.
So there's like a flat top and then like 2 ramps on either side. So like one to sort of like get the air, and then one is like an air quotes landing strip.
Yeah, and the middle is just like a flat plane between the 2 ramps.
Exactly.
So it's not like you go off the ramp and then you would like ditch into the center. If you don't make it, you'll just hit the tabletop.
You'll just hit the tabletop. So and the idea there is sort of like safety in mind, because it's like if you don't, go for it, then you can still roll over it and just go down and you'll be fine as long as you take it slowly enough or whatever. But basically what happened to Mike was he came down on his front wheel, right, like, about like a foot away from that down landing strip zone, goes over his handlebars and just like falls through space for like 15 feet.
Right. It was and of course David was filming. So
we have it on camera.
I was not there that day. And I remember, because I had to get like my, because I have kids, that's why I wasn't there that day.
Sure.
You guys went after work. And if I was like, hey, Beth.
Yeah. Can I go do
How
this?
about after work, instead of coming home and relieving you, I go do bicycle jumps.
Do jumps, as it were.
Do jumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over so well. But I remember you guys had to drop me. We were getting a roof rack installed on our minivan because we're so cool.
Oh, yeah.
And you had to drop me off at the dealership so I could pick up my car. And you and Steven were talking like, oh, is Mike even coming? Like, I know it sounded like he wanted to, but he'd already made plans. And then it was like, no, I don't think he's going to make it. And then like right before I got out, you're like, oh, he changed his plans. It was like, not only was it the last jump on the last run of the day,
and
but it was
guy.
And then he was the last person in line, but it was also like a last second decision to even be able to make it.
Yes.
Like, oh, I really went out of my way to be in this position. And so basically like I come off of it and I would say it was probably, and again, 3 inches of air, but like, it was probably like my best like feeling run of the day. So like I remember getting to the end, like doing like my skid stop, like throwing my foot down, turn around. Yeah.
And like Steven's behind me and he's already off his bike.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. And like, David from his perch, like with the camera, he's like sprinting and we're all like converging on Mike, who landed on his face.
Yeah.
And it's like you've seen, it's like something from like an ESPN highlights reel. Like it's like that. It's not like, it's that bad.
Yeah.
Like
maybe you have the video.
We do have the video.
Maybe we'll post it on the Patreon, but we will put a like viewer discretion. Not like I will say right now, like it's not terrible. Like there's no broken bones, and I will say that he is okay.
He is okay. He is okay.
In fact, I would say he's made a miraculously fast recovery for how bad he looked immediately after.
Yes. But the video itself isn't graphic, but it is it is a little intense.
It is someone hitting their face on the ground.
Right. And that's the thing too. Like, so what happened for me is like, you've seen so many of these videos and frequently like, if you're watching like, I don't know, Ridiculousness comes to mind with like Rob Dyrdek.
I can't watch that show.
Yeah. Too cringy.
I can't. There is, okay, it wasn't ridiculousness, it was Tosh.0, but of course these shows are just like, here's viral videos.
Right, and I'm commenting on it.
Yeah, and they, make jokes about people doing dumb things, but there are like fail sections where it's people getting injured.
Yes.
And there's just one video in particular where this kid like jumps off of the dock and like breaks his ankle under the water, and I'm like that I wish I'd never seen because I can't unsee it, and I never know when I'm about to see something I can't unsee on these shows.
It's making me twitch just thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it right now. I'm like, no. Why am I? Oh, I hate. I'm like, and it's such a bummer because if you could guarantee me that there was no bone breaking on those shows, they're very fun shows because they're very funny. But I can't. I'm like, no.
I have to tell you though, yeah, because that was like the perspective gained all in like the blink of an eye. Was like, oh, when those people fall, they get hurt. And now I'm here and I'm in this situation. So like I run over and like Mike's right eye is already swollen shut. Like you just can't see his eye. It's like
immediately.
Completely. His helmet is like broken. He's got like bits of his helmet like had like literally like, cut his face and stuff. So it's like all sorts of craziness going on. And like his left cheek had, I forget what it's called, but like it's like an air pocket like popped into it. But when I walked up, I was like, he broke his face. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And like, we're like at the bottom of a hill out in the middle of nowhere, and there's no way to get a vehicle to him. So I'm like literally like sitting there thinking like, I'm going to have to drive my car through a fence to come get him. Like,
right, like
that's that's where I'm at right now. Like I'm just going to have to like floor it and drive it through a fence. And I'm just going to have to deal with the consequences of the fence being broken. I'm going to have to replace that. I'm going to have to fix my truck afterwards. Like, and like, these are like my wheels are spinning.
Right.
Like this is my reality at this point in time.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is what I'm going to have to do to fix this situation. And so I am just freaking out. So, like we're going through this whole scramble to like try to like, get all of the bikes back up, up to the hill to our vehicles so that we can then like help Mike back up. And he actually does, like he gets up and the guy's like smiling. He's like, he just had probably the most epic crash any of us have had in our entire cycling careers. And he's just like giddy.
That's what you call some endorphins.
Yeah, endorphins, sheer adrenaline dump. So anyway, we finally, we get him back to the car, and same thing. It was just sort of like, now I'm an hour away from a hospital. Right, he's in the car. So I just floored it as much as I was possibly able to get him back to safety. But the thing was, and this is what was so crazy about it, is that like his morale has not dipped since it happened. Like every single time I've talked to him about it, he's just like as cheery as can be. He's like, I'm just glad I'm okay. Like it could have been a lot worse. But meanwhile, like I drop him off at the ER with his fiance, and like,
yeah, that's the other thing. Mike's getting married later this year, so big face injury, not great for weddings.
Not great. Yeah, his fiance was not pleased with me, who happens to also be my already sister-in-law. So it's a double whammy in that regard. But so here's the thing, because this was like the emotional reaction that I had, because like you see these viral videos and infrequently they are quite funny and they're being presented in a way that is funny. But this was like my perspective shift was like, I gone through this and all of a sudden, like, when someone you love who is like badly hurt, and you're just so scared for it. And so like, I get him there, I get him to the ER, we drop him off, like he goes into the door, and he, like, for all intents and purposes, like he ultimately is like okay, and he's like handling it and he's like rolling with the pain. I get to the car and just burst into tears. Like, just like I'm like, I barely held it together long enough to get him to the hospital. As soon as my responsibility was over, it was like, I have absolutely nothing else to provide.
Dump.
Yes. Yeah. So you could ask Alice about it, but the rest of the evening, I was just a complete mess.
That sounds completely reasonable.
Yeah. But he's okay now. So,
yeah.
Anyway, Mike, I'm glad you're fine.
Yeah. So, the corny joke.
Hey!
Yeah.
Let's end on a light note. How about that? Okay. So I thought this corny joke was actually really hilarious, and I read it like 7 times, and I was like, I'm pretty into it. Okay. Because it's either hilarious or not funny. It comes from Jacob McDill, who says, "Why do you never see elephants hiding in trees?"
I don't know, Ben. Why don't you ever see elephants hiding in trees?
Because they're so good at it. It's like, I can't even decide if it's funny. It's like, because it's like, of course they're hiding in trees.
Why don't you see them hiding? Because they're hiding.
Because they're hiding. Because they're good at it.
Because they're good at it.
How could elephants hide in trees? And it's like, that's the mystery.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Luke recently learned how to play hide and seek. And so like, we're like in Beth and I's closet, he's like tiny enough where he can like lay in the space between the floor and like where the shirts hang down from the hangers.
Okay.
So, I'll go like stand in our room and he'll be like, I'm gonna count the days. I'm gonna go hide. Okay. And he would go, and it was amazing watching him learn hide and seek, right? Because the first like 7 games in a row, he went and hid in the exact same spot. It's like, the game is I go lay down here. And I was like, like the goal is you can hide in other places. And he's like, okay. And it's like, how, like, it was so interesting because like I didn't explain to him hiding in particular. It was just that like that the point is to not be seen.
Okay.
But like he certainly picked up on it very quick.
Did he?
Yeah. And you would, there's not that, our closet's not that big, right? So,
right.
So there's not that many places he could hide or anything. But he certainly managed to find like 3 or 4 little nooks or crannies where he could completely be hidden, more or less. And it was like, of course, I was like, I know you can only get to like 3 or 4 places. But,
sure, yeah.
But
not terribly big space.
But it was very interesting to like watch him like learn, figure out like, this is what hiding is. This is the ways I could do it. Here's how I can get into the spot. Here we go. It was like, this is very interesting to watch. It's like, it's so cool when you can see like little breakthroughs happening. Like the other day, I came into his room and like in the morning to get him up, and I was like, it was like 6:45 or something, so it wasn't super light out yet, but I noticed what looked like the light was on his room. I was like, oh man, did I forget to turn the light off last night? Like, that's obviously why he's awake now, because he woke up and the light was on, and that woke him up. Ugh, way to go. But I'm like, I don't think I forgot. I don't think I forgot. So I go in there and I'm like, did you turn the light on? Because I'm like, he can't reach the light switch.
Sure. I'm
like, how'd the light get on? And he's like, oh, I used the potty. So what he had done was pushed his potty over, stood on top of the potty, and then he could reach.
Amazing.
And then he could reach it. I was like, that's very smart.
That's very
You're
clever.
figuring things out. So it's not. I'm sure lots of kids realize that they could like push things over and use them to get to higher places.
Sure. But what it reminds me of is, I don't know if you remember these or not, but we had these like plastic toy boxes.
Yeah.
And they were terrible for standing upon.
Oh yeah. Flimsy lids
and like slippery plastic.
Yeah.
And I remember I used to use this. It was like the end all be all. Like you could use it to reach anything. And it was like, it was never good. It never held. Mm-hmm. Also, on the note of hide and go seek, I was having flashbacks to when I was a kid and played hide and go seek, where basically it was my sole objective inside of every single game to hide inside of the laundry basket.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, if I could just get into the laundry basket,
no one would ever.
They will never find me.
They will never find me.
It's like, it is the best hiding spot imaginable.
Hide and seek, I think, brings out a level of creativity in kids that people do not credit enough.
Yeah.
Like when I'll go back to 4-H camp here for a second.
Do it.
Most of your day is taken up by whatever like little like activities or classes you signed up for.
Jay, they're your majors.
Yeah, basically your 4-H majors.
Yeah, 4-H
it's like I got archery in the morning, and then I got fishing and horseback riding and swimming.
Right.
Like this is my day. All right.
I majored in archery.
Whatever. So there's like 1 hour a day where like you have like leisure time or something.
Sure.
By which mostly you need to just like hang out in your room. But we had these little like, I guess sort of dorm rooms, bigger than my actual college dorm. There was like 4 people in it.
Okay.
Right. So you got 2 beds on one wall, 2 beds on the other wall, bathroom, suite area. That's about it. That's the whole room.
Sure.
If you will. But like, so there's 4 of us staying in there, and we probably played, I don't know, 15 rounds of hide and seek.
Like in that room?
In that room. Like one person goes out, stands outside the door, counts to, 50 or whatever, comes back in. And it would like blow even as a kid, I was like, I cannot believe how many different ways everyone is finding to not be found.
Yeah.
Like unbelievably.
That is true.
You wouldn't think there's just not that many spots.
Did anybody hide in their suitcase?
I'm sure someone tried. People would like.
That's a mobile laundry basket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. People would get like, they would use like height. They would be like, Spider-Man up in like the corners of the ceiling in the shower.
I have to tell you, though, that is like my least favorite trope in all TV and cinema ever, is when like somebody is about to get caught and then they're hiding in the floorboards or whatever, like doing that, like, I'm frozen up here.
Yeah.
Go quickly. And then like they've always got like a piece of like sweat or blood or something that's like about to drip off of them. And then like you like watch the slow motion like thing hit the ground, and then like the person like turns around and they're like, oh, they're going to get caught. And it's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not.
Right.
Because nobody ever looks up. Why would anybody look up?
Yeah. Why would there be anyone up there? You look at the ceiling.
I look at the ceiling constantly, specifically because of this.
You think of this? Quoth says in Name of the Wind, you'd be surprised how often people just don't look up when he's like running along the rooftops.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I'm going to look up more.
Okay.
Just in case. Because if you caught both himself running across the rooftops, I'd have to go and say hello.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Big fan, dude. Big fan of your work.
Can you sign my cloak? All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of The Pop. There are so many different ways that you could reach out and communicate with us if you would be willing to or excited to. If you could leave a review just anywhere that this podcast exists. Otherwise, you can email us at popcornculturepod@gmail.com. We're also over on Reddit and on Patreon, which is patreon.com/popcornculture. It helps us decide who is going to be the one true host week in, week out.
Yes, all you have to do if you want to help determine who is the one true host is sign up for either team, Buzzy B or Jazzy J. Whichever tier has more people determines who is the one true host.
Exactly. And we have two different tiers. So we have our $5 tier where you can vote at that level, and then our $25 tier, which is an exclusive piece of popcorn culture merch.
Yes.
Which currently we are, I am like expecting any day. I actually even thought today, I was like, today's the day we're going to get
It's got to be coming in.
It's got to be coming in.
The Q2 exclusive merch.
The Q2 exclusive merch has been underway for weeks now. We've been so excited about it. We've been hyping it. The prototype should be coming soon. Hopefully, I'm hoping by next week. I don't want to make any promises, but that's my goal. So otherwise, guys, be on the lookout for that. And until next time,
pop, pop.